What's up, Taiwan? I'm Laurel Stewart with the news from here in Taiwan and around the world. Taiwan's cabinet is warning that changes to government funding passed by the opposition in the legislature will have serious impact on next year's budget, including defence spending. It comes after a slew of amendments were rammed through by lawmakers last week. Rick Glowett has been following this story for us from the legislature. Rick, what is the cabinet saying?
So Taiwan's cabinet this morning is saying that the controversial amendment passed through this legislature just a few days ago will severely disrupt their spending plans for 2024. They reckon they might have to cut as much as 30% off their budgets. Taiwan's government is split with a Democratic Progressive Party presidency and his cabinet, while this legislature is in the hands of two main opposition parties. Now, these parties have been clashing quite literally. There's been legislative brawls here, as well as big protests outside the legislature over the last few days over a controversial amendment to the way Taiwan's government funds itself. That is that they want to move central government funding, reallocate it to local government. Now, why is this controversial? Well, the cabinet is saying it's going to impact the way it spends its money, including that all-important defence spending. The legislature here today has been pretty quiet, none of those brawls from last week, but main political parties have been holding fiery press conferences.
那大家可以看到哦，这对台湾我们的自治来说是个重大里程碑，而且这一次的修法的重点呢是把饼做大，希望能够让地方的这个自主财源能够更加的丰盛。
事实上，你们只为了你们把这些钱分配来地方，地方未来要怎么使用，你不知道。地方是不是用来绑桩，是不是在做一些无效的小型工程，你也不知道。
This amendment is one of just 3 controversial amendments that were passed by this legislature on Friday. There's also one that will change the way Taiwan's constitutional court works, and another that will make it harder for Taiwan's citizens to recall local politicians.
So we know that Taiwan's cabinet and the president have spoken out against these amendments. Tell us what's next for these bills.
Well, Taiwan's cabinet has been saying that it's going to be extremely hard for it to implement these changes. And over the weekend, Taiwan's President Lai Ching-te said that they could deprive Taiwan's citizens of some of their rights. He also said that Taiwan's national security was at risk. That's if these bills will impact removing funding from defense. This is not the first time that we've seen controversial amendments, legislative brawls, and large-scale protests over the last few months. There was a few controversial government reforms that were passed in the summer. At that time, the president signed them into law, and then the Constitutional Court was asked to rule on them. The cabinet here says it's still considering what it's going to do with these laws, but of course there is the chance that Taiwan's president refuses to sign them. All of this is happening in just the first few months of legislative and presidential terms that are going to last 4 years. So we can expect to see more of this political turmoil in the foreseeable future.
Thanks, Rick. That was Rick Glowett reporting from the legislature in Taipei. For more on what the new legal changes mean for Taiwan's politics, Chris Gorin spoke with political risk analyst Ross Feingold.
I think when a lot of people see this footage of fighting in the legislature, they may think this is a government in disarray that is dysfunctional. Are they wrong?
They're wrong in the sense that this kind of pushing and shoving or blocking the doorway, even more violent interactions between legislators from the different parties is somewhat out of the ordinary, but it actually is quite ordinary. Taiwan has a long history of this. But eventually legislating proceeds, even if one side or the other does not like the outcome.
Let's say all of the amendments that passed eventually make it into law. How big of a change would this be? Is it the kind of thing that would impact politics for years to come, or is it a more marginal change?
I think these are significant changes. Increasing the quorum requirement for the Constitutional Court could have implications for laws that haven't even been passed, or other types of challenges to whether something is constitutional or not. Thinking of things like marriage equality, where it was interpretations by the executive branch that were challenged as being unconstitutional and eventually were found to be unconstitutional. And the same thing with the allocation of government revenues between the central government and local governments. If that remains as is post-amendment, that means going out into the future, the amount of money that the central government could spend is going to be significantly reduced, and the amount of money that local governments can spend, where that's basically handed over to them for spending, will increase substantially. This would also benefit the Chinese Nationalist Party because they control far more local governments at the moment than the Democratic Progressive Party does.
Is this about separation of powers, or is this purely partisan? In other words, if we were to see the party of the president and the legislative majority flip, would you expect to see a DPP majority reverse these amendments?
No, I would expect them to continue to support these changes, because if they had a legislative majority, it might give them more power. So again, when the shoe's on the other foot, we see the parties acting in the opposite way to which they previously acted. And that's one of the traditions of Taiwan democracy.
That was political risk analyst Ross Feingold. The minority leader, Ke Jianming, is calling a video of himself on TikTok a deepfake. In the video, a person who appeared to be Ke made negative comments about his own party, the Democratic Progressive Party.
为什么在这个时候，一定要出这种烂招、大放厥呢？因为他们要混淆视听，因为这几天就是最关键的时刻。若这几天以后，台湾三赢变色。 他们可以为所欲为，他们通过这种违宪的3个法案，是完全让台湾民主扼杀，让台湾亡国。
Ke was referring to amendments to 3 laws that passed with strong support from the opposition Kuomintang on Friday. Critics of the amendments have accused the KMT of catering to China by altering the country's democratic systems. Police are investigating the origins of the video and urge the public not to share it. It is illegal to create and disseminate fake videos in Taiwan. Taiwan's legislative speaker is set to attend US President-elect Donald Trump's inauguration in January. Politico is reporting that Han Kuo-yu, a KMT politician, will lead a large delegation of Taiwanese officials to the event in Washington, D.C. Taiwan usually sends representatives to US presidential inaugurations, despite backlash from China. The country sent 11 bipartisan reps to Trump's first inauguration in 2017. Trump has also invited Chinese President Xi Jinping to attend in January, though he's not expected to go. Stay tuned to TaiwanPlus through January as we bring you coverage from the US inauguration. There's a new 4-legged friend on Australia's pastures, but it's not a cow or a sheepdog. It's an AI-powered robot that can assess the health of fields and farm animals to make cattle farming more efficient and environmentally friendly. Rosie Greninger reports.
Meet Swagbot, Australia's newest and brightest cattle herder. AI-powered robot was created by researchers at the University of Sydney with the aim of making cattle farming more efficient and sustainable. The machine autonomously analyses the plant health, type and density of fields and directs cows to the most nutritious areas.
Once the cattle are used to the robot, they will follow the robot around. And so if you move to certain parts of the pasture, the animals will follow through. And if you stop, then they'll stop and they can graze that particular part.
This avoids overgrazing and preserves the soil's nutrition, which in turn supports plant health and livestock capacity. The machine also helps farmers monitor the health of their cattle. It senses assessing the animal's movements to create a unique profile for each member of the herd. These key functions allow farmers to make better use of their resources, which is increasingly in short supply, to improve productivity and meet global demand.
It allows us to assess our paddocks in real time in a much more detailed way than what you can now, particularly if they start bringing in real-time measurement of things like nitrogen, potassium, phosphorus. And
the population of the world is growing. and we have the same amount of land to feed that population, and so maximising how much food we deliver for the same amount of imports, even less in terms of the imports, is what's important. And the only way we can do that is with precision agriculture.
The precision of the technology also makes cattle farming more environmentally friendly.
So using less chemicals, using less water, and those things really, both of those things really lent themselves towards robotics.
Swagbot may prove to be a game changer for a major beef exporter like Australia, which faces a hot and dry climate. And it's just the beginning. Amid a growing trend of robotics being developed for the agriculture industry, scientists are confident there will soon be more robots like this one on farms in Australia and around the world. Dolphine Chen and Rosie Greninger for TaiwanPlus.
People gathered in Taipei over the weekend to celebrate the 5th anniversary of Dragon Dungeon Day with the country's largest Renaissance fair. Millie Hughes went to meet some of Taiwan's live-action role-playing community to find out more.
Here at Taiwan's largest Renaissance fair, the LARPing community, otherwise known as live-action role players, are gathered here today wearing their favourite costumes inspired by European medieval history.
Dennis is a member of Taiwan's LARPing Society and one of the organisers of Dragon Dungeon Day.
LARP is live action role play， 它意思就是有点像真人的角色扮演游戏。我们小时候都玩过什么 RPG 或线上游戏，那 LARPing 就像是真的人来玩线上的 RPG 游戏一样，所以你会有真实的互动，比如说你拿武器互相打来打去，那你可能会有真实的对话跟穿着衣服。那这个是 LARPing 的主要定义。其实，在台湾的 LARP 发展的还不错，有各式各样的社团，北中南都有自己的社团。那每个的风格也不大相同，然后其实玩家会去尝试各种不同，然后找到更自己喜欢的社团。
Adventurers are invited to complete real-life quests by finding clues at all the stalls, offering fun and fantastical finds.
Those who complete their quests will be rewarded with badges like these.
Other activities involve archery, interactive board games, trying on armour, and battle simulations. Also, a medieval music performance.
释放压力这一块，还有就是我们算是模拟实战的一些竞技类的一些运动，它算是一种 sports， 你可以把它当成一种 sports。
Yes, I'm a LARPer. I've been doing it for about 7 years, I think. Yeah, I knew about it in the US, but I didn't really have a chance to do it until I got here. I think we're growing a lot. It started out, you know, just like maybe 20 people in a park, and now we have big battles where we might have 100 or so people.
我是第二次来这边，去年也有来过。
这其实这个市集第5届，是我第5次来。对。 我身上有5个胸章，这个是第1届的、第2届的、第3届的、第4届的跟第5届的。
这是我第2次来参加。I think this community is growing very largely because I've heard from them that initially the scale of this group maybe just hundreds, but now it becomes thousands or 10,000s. So you can see the flow here is very huge. Yes, it's a proof of this community is growing.
Whether a seasoned LARPer or a casual fantasy fan, Taiwan's largest Renaissance fair has something for everyone.
It's a space to let out your alter ego, explore a world of new identities, or engage in a new hobby. Although just in its 5th year, the organisers here hope Dragon Dungeon Day will gain legendary status and earn a place in Taiwan's cultural landscape. Luffy Lee, Bryn Thomas and Millie Hughes for TaiwanPlus.
Thanks for joining us for What's Up Taiwan. Download our app to get our latest news reports directly on your device. Finally, we take you to an annual costume party at the National Palace Museum here in Taipei. I'm Laurel Stewart. Take care and see you later.